All right, all right. How's it going? Going live on Facebook. Hey everybody. Hey everybody, it's me, Mark D. I think we're going here. Just gonna give it a couple seconds to warm up. And yeah, feeling good, looking good. It's a beautiful day in Vancouver today. And yeah, I've been off grid for a little bit. So I wanted to come on today and reconnect, talk about some of the challenges I was having last little while. And today I want to talk about love and some things you can do if you suspect you might have troubles giving and receiving love. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about three things we can keep in mind when we're trying to expand and grow our own personal love, both giving and receiving. And I'm just going to let it warm up a little bit here. While we do that, let it connect, let the Facebook thing do its thing. I'm going to turn this light off. I don't like the way it's going. That's horrible. And then I'm going to turn this off too. Look at that. Oh, it's much more normal. Awesome. Yeah. So, I've had a rough couple of weeks actually. I've been really in a good place for a couple of months now. Doing great, working on the business, family life's great, work life has been pretty good, and been pushing a lot of comfort zones, and that's been really awesome, really great, really growing inside, and feeling the stress of that, but leading into it mostly. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what my challenges have been when I wasn't leaning into it and what's been going on for me. So, first of all, I want to talk about love. Everybody gives, receives, and thinks about love in a different way. So, not all of these things will apply to you. Some of them will make you think a little bit differently, and I want you to be able to kind of just reflect in your mind about how you act and how you see and how you receive and give love, and hopefully this helps you out a little bit. I know that from my childhood, from my past, from my growing up from childhood, um, I've had kind of a little bit of a challenge when it comes to giving and receiving love. And that's what I want to talk about is the first step actually in terms of expanding your love is going to be awareness. So this is my reflection on my own awareness and my own stance or position in love. And what I essentially have realized that, you know, whatever happened to us when we're kids, no matter how terrible or how mild or how great a childhood we have, we need to work our way beyond that. We need to go past our childhood. Nobody's responsible for the way we are right now as an adult than other than ourselves. And that's the only thing you can control in this world. And so one of the things I noticed in the past was I often felt like the victim. I felt like I was, being hard done by. Um, I don't feel heard a lot often, despite my rambunctious, loud nature. Despite lots of people receiving me very well. Um, when I was a little bit younger, my 20s and early 30s, life of the party, always telling jokes, always getting laughs. And looking back on that, there was a reason I kind of presented all that the way I did because I was really looking for that attention and that place of belonging. And I really wanted to feel like I had a place. And not recognizing in that at the time, what would happen is when I wasn't feeling that, I would cover it up with vices. So food, drugs, alcohol. And as I came through that phase of my life, I recognized that I had this opinion that I actually didn't ever feel depressed. I didn't feel depressed. I didn't have anxiety. But what was really happening was covering it up with all these vices. And we know that's not good, right? Because the further down that rabbit hole you go, the worse things get, the harder it is to turn it around, the harder it is to break the cycles. And that's the experience I had as well. So I became aware of this probably about 8 years ago while I was traveling. I did a lot of work doing volunteer work in orphanages. I saw some really horrific things with some really beautiful, loving children, and just saw some like really bad situations where these kids had really, really been done wrong by. And that sort of shifted my view of things. I knew that going and traveling, seeing different cultures would be really good for me. And what I found was it wasn't just about the traveling and the different culture, which was mind and heart expanding, very informative, very shifting of my perspectives. But it was the connection, the direct connection I was making with these children I was working with at the hospital, both at an orphanage and at a hospital. There was two different places, one in Guatemala and one in Bolivia, that really had a deep, profound effect on me. And the way it affected me is that I saw that these children who had had such horrible things happen to them by their own parents, by you know, by the world, by society, um, and this happens all over the place. This isn't isolated to those two countries that I was in. Um, but when I was with these children, they still had an abundance of joy and love coming from them, pouring from them. And I always was astonished by this, and I was really, really moved by it. And I knew in my own self that I often felt victimized, or I was feeling like things sucked for me, or like I didn't love my job. And this shifted my entire mindset. And there was this one little girl that I worked with, Noella. She was burned. Her body was burned, like 70% of her body was really drastically burned. And the first night I met her, she was completely in bandages. I couldn't see her face. I couldn't see anything, except for bandages. And I just sat with her while she essentially screamed and cried. It was like the first night she'd come into the hospital. And she was in that specific room. I just went and spent time with her. I didn't do anything. I just sat there. I didn't really speak. Well, I spoke Spanish, okay, but I didn't really know what to say. I don't know if I know what to say in English. Like, how do you communicate with a child that that's happened to? And so while I was going through that journey, I was kind of figuring out how to support, reflecting on my own stuff going on, and I didn't even know her name because she wasn't. It actually turned out she didn't even speak Spanish. She only spoke indigenous language in Bolivia, and I only learned that much, much later in my relationship with her. So while I was sitting there with her, just kind of giving her my fingers so she could put her fingers, like, she was bandaged right up to the tips, she was just touching my finger. And I sat there for a couple evenings with her. Visiting time is different than volunteer time. A couple weeks later, a few weeks later, I'm in the afternoons, I'm going to play with the kids who are in the kind of general care area. It was intensive care, but it was general. They were able to move around. These are kids who could play still. We'd sit and watch a cartoon. We'd play with puzzles lots. That's what we did mostly. Lots of coloring, lots of crayons. And, you know, I think not a lot of those kids have visitors, and it's potential that some of those kids' visitors were probably maybe the people who even harmed them. So I could connect that. I could understand that. And they were all very, very open to me. Really, I seemed, to be well received when I showed up. They were really excited to see me, and that never got to my ego. That wasn't the same sort of fulfillment that was happening from Party Mark, who wanted to be the center of attention. It wasn't the same thing. Um, I actually felt like I was making a difference in their life, and I think that's two different types of feelings, which I think are very important to identify. So all this time I was in the evenings with this child who I didn't wasn't able to see or look at or recognize in critical care. I was playing with these other kids. A few weeks later, kids were coming and going based on their status, and another young lady showed up in the uh, kind of more general area, and she was just completely uh, attached to me. Like, she just really didn't want to let me go, wanted to play, wanted, like, constantly wanted me there. It was really cute. She called me Marco, and I guess I just thought my Spanish was really bad. I didn't understand why I couldn't understand her. It didn't click. But she was just completely jubilant and joyful and just full of love. Um, and I didn't really get why. Just thought she liked company, or it was because we played together. And a few days later, a nurse explained to me that that was the young lady that I had been in the other room with. Um, so that made sense. It was probably this moment that really opened up my heart to love and made me aware that I I didn't really get it. I didn't have it. I had been in love with romantic partners previously. I love my family. At the time, my family I was born from, not the family I currently have. And, I love my friends, and I thought I loved myself. And it was during some journaling later in that trip, later in that month, probably, I was writing out, and I realized that there's no reason I shouldn't feel about myself. There's no reason I shouldn't feel about myself the way that young lady appeared to feel about me. And that was the first time I had awareness and was able to identify that my own self-love was not strong enough. And that is the first step to this growth, is the awareness and being able to be aware where you're at with giving and receiving love. And not everybody's going to get this experience to be able to adjust or recognize from such magnitude. Some people will have experiences with a relationship or a romantic relationship. Some people will have a death in the family, or you might have a child. You might even break up with someone, and that might shift your view on these things. But the awareness of what your state is super important to be able to expand your love capacity, both giving and taking. So awareness is number one. So that's the first thing that you want to work on if you want to be expanding your love. Number two is connection. And so we hear a lot about connection. Connection must start with yourself. We can talk about connecting with your children or your partner or other people in the world, your workmates. There's different levels of connection. But if you don't have a deep, heartfelt connection with yourself, then you can't have certainty. You can't have certainty in how you're showing up. And what I found is when I didn't have connection with myself, I didn't understand who I was. I didn't understand what my goals and objectives were. I didn't understand my emotions, period. I wasn't able to connect with myself, which meant I wasn't able to communicate with myself. I didn't understand how to create my own standards. I didn't understand how to vocalize or even reflect on the emotions I was having. And I didn't also understand what filled my cup properly. And if you want to feel love for yourself, you have to take care of yourself, you have to fill your cup, and you also have to show yourself love. And there's a whole bunch of different ways to do this. There's exercises where you can write down the things you appreciate about yourself and work on personal gratitude. There is meditations or even just exercises for beaming yourself love, closing your eyes, letting yourself fill up with joy, and just really see the light come from your heart and feel your own love. And I hadn't done that before. And I remember journaling about this young girl, Noella, and saying the look she gives me just explains all in itself, her feelings. I try not to mind read. I try not to project, what it is I think someone's thinking, but it was just an essence. It's just like this feeling. And after thinking about that, I thought, how can I do that for myself? And that trip to Bolivia, it was to Central and South America. It wasn't just Bolivia, but I stayed quite a long time in Bolivia because I loved it there. It was a very interesting juxtaposition because I was growing in my love and my capacity for myself and for the world and for others around me. And at the same time, I was still covering up all of my challenges with vices. I spent a lot of time doing some beautiful work, volunteering, building, donating, helping, growing, connecting. I would just go to the market sometimes and just sit with the ladies selling vegetables and talk with them just because I wanted to hear about their lives. And that night I'd go out and get wasted because I couldn't handle what I was hearing about humanity, couldn't handle my own process. And it took a lot of growing through that to accept the state of things so that I could show myself love. I could exude more love myself. So that's the connection piece. You start with yourself, find different exercises that you can do, whatever's comfortable for you. Some people journal, and you need to journal from a positive tone, not to say that you always have to be happy, but speak from a way where you're not just only complaining. Get out your bad feelings, get out what's happening to you bad. Look at those things and challenge them in a way that highlights who you are in a beautiful way, because each and every one of us is beautiful. And so that's the second thing, is connection. It's going to look different in every situation, and I'm not going to go through every one right now because I think that's probably going to take a while, and I think connection's its own video, so I'll do one of those in the future. Comment below if any of this is resonating with you so far. I covered the first two: awareness of your state in how you give and receive love, and number two is connection, starting with yourself. You need to have a deep, heartfelt connection with yourself so that you can feel that love before you can give it out. Okay. I used to do this really horrible Dr. Phil impression about, you can't love somebody if you don't love yourself. Okay. And that was it. So, it's corny and cheesy and a bit cliche, but it's true. You absolutely cannot. You can have love, but you need to have deep love for yourself. And so the third step to expand or grow your capacity for love is action. Okay. You may remember I used to post under positive insight, and my saying was move love to action. And that is absolutely how I feel, how I believe we need to move forward in order to expand not just our own capacities for love, but our love across the world. And action looks different in every situation. Whether it's taking an extra moment to talk to someone in the grocery store who's in line behind you. I was at a fast food joint a couple weeks ago, and this guy starts chatting with me as he got his receipt, and he just talked away. And I actually had the thought, like, man, this is annoying. I just want some time alone. I went for this walk to get some space. And I realized the guy was like one of the most genuine humans I've spoken to in a long time. And he started complaining about parking. As you know, I work in the parking industry, or you may or may not know, but I work in the parking industry. So of course I was like, oh, it's interesting that you brought that up. And we chatted for a while. He went off when I went to go get my drink or something like that. And on the way out, I made sure to find him and say goodbye and enjoyed talking with you. And then we talked for another 20 minutes. And it was a different kind of connection. I don't know the impact it had on him. I definitely gained from it because I was able to stop what I was doing, get out of myself. I was spending time to fill up my cup. And I thought one thing would fill up my cup, but actually what I needed to do was connect with a human. And so after a long walk of solitude and meditation and feeling more level than I was when I started the walk, it was the perfect timing to get that kind of connection. And I absolutely adored this man. I didn't even ask his name. But he was going back to Langley, and we wished each other well. And then he said, "Hey, I hope the Canucks do better." We hadn't even spoken about hockey, but that was his parting gift for me. So I thought that was amazing. So connection is going to be something that absolutely needs to be actioned on. Okay. And so when you're talking about action for yourself, uh, that is actually what I talked about before. You just do some meditation, actually um, actively love yourself. Okay. Sounds a little weird. Actively love yourself through the steps of deeply thinking about what you love about yourself, how you feel when you feel loved. If you're not feeling in a good place, envision whatever it is that connects with you for love. So for me, it's Noella's face. Now it's my own children's face. The face they have when they have pure joy, or when they're being coy and hilarious. And I just love their character and personality, and that fills me up. And that feeling I can feel inside, I can then close my eyes and I can bring that feeling to myself. And that's absolutely really important for any of us who need to change the way we approach our moods. And that's ultimately the goal for expanding your capacity for giving and receiving love. Because once you have the ability to turn that switch on when you're in a challenging time, you will have the opportunity to shift. Okay. So we're going to start with awareness. Talk to yourself. Where are you at? Are you blaming others? Are you in the victim state? Are you able to take ownership? That's the number one thing you need to be able to do before you can make any of these changes. Attitude changes are great, but behavior changes is what it takes to be able to go forward and actually make major changes. And then you can have an impact in your world, impact with your partner, impact with your children, impact at work. You can shift others not by trying to control them, but by just having your own love exude from you. And that is powerful stuff. Like, that is really powerful. And it just takes one instance of you seeing it in action and happening for you to be able to hold on to the fact that you can do it. You have the absolute ability to shift those things. You're not going to do it through fear. And that's why it's really, really important for you be able to shift the feeling of love within you. I hope this is resonating a bit. Anybody have any comments? I'll check through the comments and take a look. If you're watching live, give me a hashtag live. I heard that helps with the algorithms. And if you're watching the replay, give me a hashtag replay. So again, I'm just going to go over it one more time. Awareness, connection, and action. Those are the three things to go through and go over and do in order to expand your capacity for love. This is Mark D. I hope this has been helpful. I've really enjoyed speaking with you. Glad to be back online here in a different post. I'm going to talk about why I was offline for a little while, and I'll see you later. Talk soon. I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, or morning, whatever it is for you. And as soon as I figure out how to stop the recording, I'll see you later. There it is. Ciao, everyone.